The ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union, and they're funding a boy's right to compete at school and college against girls. And who's funding the American Civil Liberties Union? The Open Society Foundation, which is George Soros, the Ford Foundation, all these, billionaire globalist foundations are funding this. I mentioned Jennifer Pritzker, the family own the Hyatt hotel chains. They're funding gender studies in universities. You've got Martine Rothblatt is another one of these billionaires doing the same. So it is funded by the billionaires.
They're men, by the way.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Jennifer Pritzker's a man, used to be Jonathan Pritzker. Martine Rothblatt used to be Martin Rothblatt. Okay. So they're funding, all these, they want people to copy them, basically. They've got, in my eyes, I believe that it's a great possibility that they're autogynophiles. They get a sexual kick and a fetish out of imagining themselves as a woman. And to normalise that, they're funding courses so that more people will become like them.
Welcome to the Red Pill Sangha podcast. Diet, lifestyle, spirituality, tales of healing. The Sangha, the collective, is waking up. Links below to my autoimmunity consults, online course, books, support groups, and live events. Check them out. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Red Pill Sangha podcast. And I've got Steve and Sue James on, great friends of mine. We first met, actually, at a mutual friend's, two mutual friends, Ross and Ricky's house, at a tinfoil hat party a few years ago, which was also the start of the Daz band, because it was the first time I met Darren. Yeah. And so that was a cool evening, that was. And since then, I've seen Steve and Sue so many times, and Steve followed us around and did the Daz Band documentary, which was absolutely brilliant. And honestly, the two of them have been so amazing in this space. And if you haven't seen Steve's channel, I'm going to have to mention it right up front, is Edge of the Matrix. It is, as he mentioned on another podcast, he's trying to educate here, but it's also incredibly entertaining. The situations he gets himself into, my God, and staying so calm, I'm amazed. Steve and Sue, welcome.
Hi, good to see you, Phil.
Thanks for having us on, Phil.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's nice not to be talking all about diet, but however, some things might come in to do with that, because I think it's all part of it. But let everybody know what you do with the Edge of the Matrix channel, or anything else you like, how you came to this in the first place, because honestly, you're just so brave, and it's just hilarious stuff on there.
Well, basically what I do is I choose different towns and cities across the UK, and I stand there with sandwich boards. I've taken the trans flag colour and I've put a slogan which people say is anti-trans on the front. The main ones are trans women are men, and there's no such thing as a transgender child, but other signs say keep gender ideology does not belong in schools, gender ideology is a cult. So for doing that, as you say, it can get quite entertaining because people come along. I just stand there waiting for patients, and then start to get up and often attack me.
Throw food at you, generally.
Yeah, you've been like a kind of walking food bank recently, haven't you?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I've had 4 different types of food products thrown over me: hot chili sauce, soup, golden syrup, and the latest one was kind of baked beans down in Nottingham.
I saw that one. It was just ridiculous.
No steaks, unfortunately.
No steaks, no. Well, they're
all
going
vegetarian food.
They're going with the stuff that they actually eat, which is half of the problem anyway, I think. But it's amazing how aggressive they get when your message is not aggressive at all, is it? It's not hate speech. It's nothing. That's nothing to do with it.
Well, ultimately, I believe that people have said to me, why does it matter to you? And the truth matters. And, without truth, we don't have freedom. So I'm there speaking the truth that trans women are men. Okay. And what they've done is they've engaged in a game of let's pretend. And they're within these echo chambers where everybody's pretending. Okay. And I'm there saying, well, the emperor's got no clothes on. He may be wearing lipstick, but we can see his balls swinging in plain sight. That's a quote actually from J.K. Rowling. But I'm standing. J.K. can't stand on the street. She's a wizard with a pen, and I suppose I'm a wizard with my boots on the ground, trying to speak the truth to people that are playing Let's Pretend. And because I'm doing that, they get incredibly emotional and incredibly angry at me for doing so, because they ultimately that they're playing the game of Let's Pretend. And what they've done as well is they've turned the trans identifying men into victims. There are victims in this, don't get me wrong. You know, these young people have been groomed online and being told that they're born in the wrong body, and it's really serious. You know, they've taken, you know, teenagers that, you know, are going through trauma, they can't accept themselves for who they are, and they said, well, maybe you're not that, maybe you're born wrong, which can then lead to a lifelong pathway of medication and surgery, which is very, very harmful. So they're the victims, you know, but they often portray me as the villain attacking those people on the streets. You know, I'm raising awareness of the harms of this ideology, and I'm also saying that this ideology allows bad people, predominantly men who are autogynephiles, that is, they get a sexual kick of imagining themselves as a woman and becoming a woman and going into women's spaces and getting a euphoria boner. And there's been video evidence of that just recently on social media. You'll find that on my channel too. So yeah, I'm the villain for raising awareness of transgender ideology, because they've painted the idea of somebody who identifies as being trans as the victim. And I've just explained who the victims are and who the victims aren't.
Exactly.
I think that from talking about victims, though, I mean, it doesn't just stop with the kids and the teenagers that are deeper than that. The victims are also the parents, the grandparents, you know, that anybody that's close to those people. I mean, we met women in America when we were at the GenSpect conference, and it was horrific. You know, their families had literally fallen apart because, you know, the kids are being told that they need to literally divorce their parents, and the parents are being told that it's better to have a, you know, if it's a girl, a live son than a dead daughter, you know, and being forced into affirming these children and teenagers and even older, you know, I mean, the women that we spoke to, particularly in America, they had kids in the 20s. One of them had a 24-year-old daughter who thought after going to university that she was male and had been on testosterone for 2 years. And the other one had 2 kids, didn't she? A daughter and a son, about 21 and 23, and both of them identified as the opposite sex. And it literally had ripped her family apart. You know, her husband was burying his head in the sand, didn't want to acknowledge anything. She was having to deal with it all on her own. And, you know, it's just ultimately the whole family had been torn apart. It's horrific. It, you know, it doesn't just stop at the children and teenagers. It's the whole family.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when I'm out on the streets, I say a few things over and over again, and I say this is a war on the truth, a war on reality, a war on freedom of speech. But what I've added to that is it's also a war on the family. You know, what they're trying to do is separate children from the family. And they do that, as Sue mentioned there. They start very small. What they do is they say, maybe you should change your name. Okay, so what they're doing is they're choosing a kind of a name which could either be attributed to a girl or a boy, you know, a kind of non-binary name, if you like, you know, something like Chuck or Neo or something like that, so and what they do is they say their original name is now their dead name. So just think, what could be a closer bond than a parent to a child? A parent has given the child that name, and then the child then comes home from school, or if it's a young adult, home from university, and they say, that name you give me, that's not my name anymore, that's my dead name. Okay, don't ever use that. This is my new name. That's getting a wedge between the child and the parents straight away. And that's how it starts.
It does seem to be in all of their different agendas a war on the family, doesn't it? Because the COVID thing, when people were, you had the tinfoil hatters and the COVID enthusiasts, and it was always the division within the family. It was splitting up tons of families. I'm so blessed that my family's all woken up to it. It's great.
You're very lucky.
But it's the things I've seen have been horrific. But
well, it's pure Marxism, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's part of it. And you are right. It is about causing division. And you can maybe argue that I'm part of causing that division. People will argue that against me. And a lot of the people that are against me, they say they blame the billionaires for all the wrongs in the world. And what I will say is I can agree with you on that to a degree, because a lot of the billionaires are funding this gender ideology, but they can't see it. I'll give it examples, but they don't want to listen. There's a court case up in the United States very, very soon, next week, in fact. And the ACLU is the American Civil Liberties Union, and they're funding a boy's right to compete at school and college against girls. And who's funding the American Civil Liberties Union? The Open Society Foundation, which is George Soros, the Ford Foundation, all these, billionaire globalist foundations are funding this. I mentioned Jennifer Pritzker, the family own the Hyatt hotel chains. They're funding gender studies in universities. You've got Martine Rothblatt is another one of these billionaires doing the same. So it is funded by the billionaires.
There's men, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes. Jennifer Pritzker's a man, used to be Jonathan Pritzker. Martine Rothblatt used to be Martin Rothblatt. Okay. So they're funding, all these, they want people to copy them, basically. They've got, in my eyes, I believe that it's a great possibility that they're autogynophiles. They get a sexual kick and a fetish out of imagining themselves as a woman. And to normalise that, they're funding courses so that more people will become like them.
I'd like to take a moment to talk about my autoimmunity consults, especially for rheumatoid or psoriatic arthritis. If you or anyone you know is suffering from arthritis, I can help. I can give you the knowledge and confidence that took me years and most of my savings to uncover. I've worked successfully with hundreds of clients, and I'm in the unique position that I've been through it myself and come out the other side healed. So I know firsthand what does and doesn't work. If you book a consult or 3-consult deal, you will also get email support, plus my 30-video online course, Autoimmunity, the Subtraction Method, and my Kindle bestseller, Arthritis, the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me, for free. For more details, how to book, and to read testimonials, go to philescott.com. It's amazing how it's being normalized, and people are getting into some pretty powerful places, like the Rachel Levine. There's another one, in America. I was looking for a meme this morning. There was one I found a while ago. I can't remember. There's been some hilarious ones about that. I mean, it is funny. I know the health secretary or something, wasn't she was just barking mad.
The problem is they get everywhere. And it's funny, ever since we've been sort of plunged into this world of whatever you want to call it, you walk around the streets looking at people differently. because you just don't know, because they are everywhere.
Yeah, I didn't notice it at first until I started going out on the streets, and I can spot them with, I'd say, about a 99% accuracy now. I mean, I sometimes get it wrong, but the
It could be very difficult.
the telltale signs are the septum nose piercings, the metal on the face, the poison dart frog, blue, red, or green hair. They all have like tattoos, but just single little tattoos all the way up their arms. They have a little backpack on, a hoodie. They have the headphones. A lot of them, they walk around with their headphones on because they just want to be completely detached from the world. And I can spot them coming along. They've normally, on the backpack, they've normally got little Pokemon characters hanging from them. They're all massively into video games because they want to, their reality, they want to, they don't want to live in this world. They want to live in an online world where they can be whatever character that they want to be.
They want to detach themselves from reality.
They do, because they can't accept reality and they can't accept themselves for who they are. So, like I say, I can spot them a mile off. Sometimes I get it wrong. And people say, oh, well, you shouldn't judge a book by the colour, but I'm quite accurate often, and I see them coming, and I know that I'm going to get abuse from them, because I've probably had more abuse than 99% of the population over this, because I'm putting myself out there on the street. So I think I can call them out and call it as I see it.
I often wonder how much is tied in with the food as well, because it's also the kind of people who get into that are also very often vegan or vegetarian. And they come up to you, and I've not seen one come up and hassle you yet who looks really healthy. You get these men who are saying, oh, I'm a woman. And basically it's just because they've got dadderies from eating too much soy, right? And they come up and they're not looking well. And we sound like we're taking a piss out of them, but really it's very, very sad. It's like when vegans send me death threats on my YouTube channel. And I'm not having a go at vegans, and you're not having a go at these people. You're having a go at the people that are controlling it and just, fooling them into thinking that this kind of thing is possible, that a man can be a woman can be a man, or a human can be a vegan. And it all ties in, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've not seen many, if any, of the healthy ones that come for me. And people say, oh, well, you're really brave by being on the streets. And the thing is, yes, I suppose they are a threat. I'm not afraid of them, if it come to a one-on-one kind of fight, but, one of them could come and hit me over the head with something or worse. But I haven't seen many healthy ones. And, I look after myself. I eat predominantly a meat diet. I know you're full-on carnivore, Phil. But, they just don't look healthy. And I think part of being the best person you can is being healthy, staying fit, eating the right diet and exercising. And I do that a lot. And I train my jiu-jitsu, and in jiu-jitsu, I put myself in compromising positions which are uncomfortable. This is why I don't feel so uncomfortable when I'm out on the streets, or too afraid when I'm out on the streets and they come up and try and have a go at me. There was a couple of hairy situations that I've been in, I suppose, when I was confronted with a 5'8".
Hairy situations. I just had another.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah. There was a 6'8", 6'9" bouncer come out of Man Bar in Blackpool, and he was coming towards me, and I'm thinking, right, if he goes for me, I'm gonna have to go for his ankles to take him down. That evens things out. When they're on the floor, it evens things out. But I wouldn't have liked to take a smack off him. And to be fair, there was a guy got a bit brave in Nottingham, just the weekend just gone. He come running towards me, and I had to keep him out of my personal space. He got a bit brave, but he just looked like thin and pasty, really.
You already had another one on the floor, though, didn't you, during that, when he came running up at you?
Well, so this was I call her a little pipsqueak. So there was nothing to her, basically. What it turns out, it's a teenage girl, a young teenage girl, identifying now as a boy. She's a victim, but I got covered in beans off her. And then I immediately reacted and chased, and I grabbed hold of her hoodie and she just fell to the floor. And I actually stopped her falling to the floor by keeping hold of her. And she kind of like looked up to me, and these were her words. You might have to delete this or mute this on YouTube. She went, "You fucking white bigot." You know, they're not all words. She's been taught that.
Of course.
This is all critical race theory.
Probably doesn't even know what bigot means.
Yeah, you blame the white patriarchy for everything that's wrong in the world in your life, you know. And many, many times I've been called a white nigger faggot. Right? I've been
Work that one out if you can.
your white privilege enables you to stand here. I've had all that. You know, that's what they're being taught. And it's predominantly white people that say this to me.
Mm. It's weird.
The one that said I was a white nigger faggot was mixed race, actually.
He was also off his head on something.
Yeah.
Completely off his head. Just going back to the food thing, though, Phil, that we were talking about a couple of minutes ago. I think what you've got is lefties. We know the lefties. And they literally follow everything that they're told. So the letter, don't they, which comes out of the media, comes from the government, comes from, you know, wherever, authority. And if you think about what food is pushed as being healthy, you know, I mean, you only got to look back at the COVID bullshit. You know, what food places were still open? McDonald's and places like that, you know? And this is what they eat, you know? So you don't, God knows what's being pumped into that food anyway. How's it affecting their body, you know, their chemicals, the way that they're made up? We don't know, you know. So the whole food situation, unless you're eating healthy, you know, good nutrient-rich food, and you know where it comes from, then the amount of chemicals that get pumped into, you know, to the food, the water, everything, you know, how is it affecting them?
Oh well, I think
just don't know.
I think it's another thing to make people infertile, because they're putting this agenda in to make people not really want to be just a man and a woman and have children. But it's also the infertility, because we've got the food, the soy, that does it, you know, veggie diets. We've got the jabs, obviously. And then things like Bovair to stop cows farting.
Yeah.
And just, well, burping. It's ridiculous. And so that has been proved to also cause infertility in men. So it's coming from all angles. But I tell you, you know, getting back to the calmness, I think it's so funny. I was listening to another podcast where Sue was saying that, you know, she's not so patient and shouting at the screen. It happens here when we're watching your videos. I'm just laughing my head off. But Detta's there saying, "Take him down, Steve," because she knows that you're pretty hot with the jiu-jitsu stuff, and they come up and you're quite short, and they come up and they tell you you're short, and I'm saying, just don't push him. Seriously, don't push him. He's got those clothes on, so you can't see the muscles. But, you know, you see him in a wife beater vest and you probably might not come and tangle with him. But it is so funny, and just how calm you remain. How is there any time when you've kind of got close to losing it and you thought, I'd really like to have a go there, because you can't see it on the outside?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I've had to have a go to stop my property being stolen.
The famous rugby tackle incident, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
You're even pretty calm on that one.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Phil,
that's what you do, isn't it?
3 to 5 times a week, I go jiu-jitsu training, and I ended up rolling around on the mats, fighting with other men who were trying to choke me unconscious and snap my arms or snap my ankles. So any kind of any outlet is satisfied by that. So I don't feel the need to do that, because I do it on a weekly basis, multiple times a week. That happens. So I'm so used to it. If I need to, you know, if I need to rely on that to retrieve my property, then I'll do that. Was there a couple of times that it's happened that I've had to do it? I definitely had to do it in
You had to
Blyth.
do it when
the
the guy took your hats in.
Oh yes, and it happened at Manchester University as well. This guy, another man, thinking that he was a woman. He came, and as he grabbed my hat to take it off, I thought it was his rings that took the skin off my nose, but it wasn't actually. It was my boards came up and hit my nose and shaved, you know, a few layers of flesh off my nose. So that was cut, and then my hand got cut. But I managed to just catch him with my foot as he ran past, and he played a game of. You put them in positions that they don't want to be put into. And I did the same in Bright, a big guy. That's what fell into me, followed me for half a mile before I realised he was following me, then stole my stuff. But once I've got him down on the floor, it takes away any height advantage. You've then got size advantage. But what I can overcome with size advantage is the skills to be able to use my arms and my legs to manipulate somebody. And people that haven't practiced jiu-jitsu don't have those skills. So it just kind of, it's not to say that, you know, I'm always going to be victorious in situations, because I'm sure there's going to be a time when, well, I hope there's not, but there could be a time when I'm not. You know, if somebody's really big and strong, they'll be able to overpower me. But I do what I can to basically even up the situation by learning these skills.
I was saying to Detta that it's sometimes like watching reruns of old Kung Fu episodes. Do you remember David Carradine in Kung Fu? And he was in the sort of cowboy era, and he'd go in there and he was so chilled and everything. And eventually he'd have to take about 8 of them down at once. And they thought he was just this innocuous little Chinaman. But yeah.
What you've got to realise as well, though, with jiu-jitsu, it's very good for one-on-one. But the thing is, because it's a ground-based combat system, in grappling with somebody on the floor, all my attention is taken to that person. I could easily have some from the side and tackle me. I mean, it happened when we was in Nottingham, and I'd grabbed hold of the little pipsqueak that covered me in beans. The other guy come running towards me, and I'd only just realised how young this young girl was. So I let go and turn round, because this other guy, who was maybe 6 foot, was the bigger threat at the time. So that enabled little pipsqueak to run off, and I had to deal with this other guy.
It's crazy.
She was followed though, wasn't she?
Yeah, but here's the thing. So it's a girl who's identifying as a boy. So the police have got her now as well. I don't know if you knew that. The police have actually caught her. So we reported it. All the pictures and the video went out. So she's been referred now. She's admitted it because she couldn't not admit it because of the video. She's been referred to the youth offenders team, and I'm waiting to hear from Nottingham police.
Yeah. Well, it's just madness, but incredibly entertaining. So let's get a bit more serious for a while. Like, run people through really what are the harms from this? Because you've got the harms not only from the psychological thing, but you've got the drugs that they're on, you've got the surgery, you've got the suicide rates. You know, this is what you're concerned about, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I had to think, what skin have I got in the game? So for me, ultimately, truth matters. So if we can't say 2 + 2 =, then that could lead society down a dark path. If there's consequences to speaking the truth, so there's ultimately that. But this ideology is really damaging to young children, and it's really damaging to women that don't want men in their spaces. So I'm kind of fighting these. These are my 3 main points. We can talk about women's spaces. That's obvious. It gives all these, you know, perverted men or all these very nasty predators a golden ticket, I say, to enter female spaces, and you can't do anything about it. Okay, and that can lead to sexual assaults, voyeurism, rape. We've seen a massive increase in that in these so-called changing villages, which are mixed space changing areas, where they have these cubicles that they can go in with 12 inches gap at the bottom, and people can look over. But not only that, if you do have sex-separated spaces, then it allows these predators that self-identify as females to go in those spaces. So that's the, you know, and also female sports. You know, there's something like 900 titles, records held worldwide by men in female sports, and that figures for me a World Health Organization report, or was it a United Nations report? I can't remember.
The United Nations.
Yes. Yeah. So that's men into women's sports. You know, women can get injured by men as well. Men have competed in combat sports against women. That's how crazy it gets. But then, as you mentioned there, you've got the harms to the children through all the drugs and all the surgeries. So we can go into that. First of all, is, well, psychologically being told you're born in the wrong body. That's going to fuck some young kids up, isn't it? You were born wrong. Okay, so the first step is the puberty blockers. You just think about that. You're literally stopping a child's development into an adult. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then they're given the opposite sex hormones, so they develop what's called the secondary sex characteristics of the opposite sex. Okay, so young girl, okay, the breast might not develop as much, they'll start to grow beards. I've met many young females on the street that are taking testosterone that I can't tell are women, because they've been on these drugs and they've grown beards.
Yeah, the things that give it away, though, they always maintain the smaller hands, the softer features, the voice. You know, after listening to them for a little while, you can tell, although it's got masculine traits, it still doesn't have that masculinity to it. It's still got that softness of a female voice. So there are ways for a while.
I've done interviews with people that have been on these drugs. I did one with a young girl who used to be called Emily, now calls herself Dimitri Rodriguez, who Stratford upon Avon. That's where she lives. But she looks, on initial sight, like a man. She wears cornrows, she's got a beard, she's got all the tattoos, but she's very she's very fast in speaking, almost to a level of aggression, and that's the testosterone that's working on the body.
Yeah, I noticed that during the interview. It was
I think she's had happens once you put on a pathway of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. If that happens as a child, you will never fully sexually develop. A child doesn't know. You're stopping a child's future sexual development. Kids that are put on puberty blockers at Tanner stage 2, which is the beginning of puberty, okay, never go on to achieve an orgasm. They don't know what one is. They can't consent to that, but they're put on them. Then, 5 years later down the line, the young girls are having hysterectomies. They get put into early menopause. They get an old woman's skeleton. They get geriatric skeletons. They're at increased risk of heart attacks. And I put this streets of I say young girl, she was a young woman, she's 20 years old. It was in one of my videos over Christmas. And what she said was so sad. She said, I would rather die happy as a man than look like this. I would rather die early and be happy as a man than look like this. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You look great. But, there was an organisation called Proud Trust, and I think the national, and there is an office in Manchester, and she went to them, and they're basically for kids into believing they were born in the wrong body.
Yeah.
So and then there's the surgeries.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just horrific.
Okay. I'll give you an example, probably one of the most extreme examples. There's a young girl from the United States, or is it Canada? I think it's the United States, actually. She's called Clementine Breen. She had I think I'm right in saying this, she suffered some sexual trauma, okay? And she was trying to escape womanhood. She was taken to psychotherapists. She was told she was born in the wrong body. Perhaps you're not a girl, you're a boy. She was put on puberty blockers age 12, cross-sex hormones, so that's testosterone for her, age 13, sorry. And then at age 14, they removed her breasts, give her a double mastectomy. And she's now, good news is she's now suing the people that did this to her.
I mean, this is the other thing. They say, oh, well, you can have your breasts removed and just have them put back later on if you change your mind. It's like,
Yeah.
because they're not your breasts that you should have then. There's just something artificial.
Silicone. Yeah. Here's, quite tragically, I just spoke about Dimitri earlier. When she had her breasts removed, she got necrosis of the nipples and they fell off.
So she had to get tattooed,
She's had
didn't she?
nipples tattooed. And now she wants to go on to have what's called, so that's called, when you have the double mastectomy, that's called top surgery. Okay, breast removed. The next stage is bottom surgery, and that's what is called a phalloplasty for females. Okay, so basically what they do is create a fake penis. So how do they do that? What they do is they take the flesh off the forearm, okay, and they roll it up and sew it on down below. And what's that doing? All that does is enables somebody to pee standing up. That's it. And I've seen pictures of surgeries which have allegedly gone well and those that have allegedly gone wrong, and they all look like they've gone wrong.
Yeah.
It's
I was
not
going to
good
say,
at all.
yeah, I've seen the same.
And they have to use a pump to pump it up
Yeah.
to, obviously mimic an erection.
Yeah.
And then obviously the other way around.
Always
called a
dilating,
vaginoplasty.
Yeah.
always dilating and
Yes.
stuff. And
Yeah, you've
Yeah.
got to always
Yeah.
dilate it. Yeah.
Yeah, dilating. So the other one is called, like we say, a vaginoplasty.
Vaginoplasty. Yeah.
Okay, where basically they castrate the young man, remove his testicles and penis, turn it inside out and create an open cavity, an open wound, which has to be dilated. Famous case of that is Jazz Jennings in the United States. Another case in the UK, and he's talked about it extensively, is a young man called Richie Herron. Okay, and here's the thing: Richie didn't have it done until his late 20s. He was almost 30 years old when he had it done. So he was suffering internalized homophobia, he said. And obviously, I think if anybody is going to be having that surgery, it must be a mental health issue. They must be mentally ill. And I don't mean that as a pejorative. I just mean mentally ill as an explainer, that you think you're born in the wrong body to the extent that you want to cut your penis and testicles off and have it turned inside out. Now, people say, oh, they should be allowed to do it when they're an adult. Well, Richie Herron did it when he was an adult, and he immediately regretted it.
Literally the moment he came
this
round.
is what we don't hear, do we? We get all this counselling and all this support of these people who want to transition, and then you don't hear the sort of horrendous things that happen afterwards and the regret.
No. And what the trans rights activists will say is the regret rate is less than 1%.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they'll say. And they'll say things, they're all reading off the same script. They'll say more people regret knee surgery than that. Well, there's no consequences to telling people that you regret knee surgery, but there are consequences to telling people that you regret going down this transition process, because you were groomed, for the most part, you were groomed and love bombed into it. As soon as you say, oh, well, it was wrong, I'm not transgender, then all of a sudden all these people turn on you. And there's a study done that something like 76% of those that detransition did not go on to tell the clinicians that transitioned them that they'd made the transition back, if you like, that they'd made a mistake, because they're too afraid to go back.
Yeah.
So we just don't know really what those figures are.
Yeah, I did an interview with another young man called Eli that went through this transition process. Thankfully, he didn't go down the surgery route, but even when he come back and said, I'm a detransitioner. We did an interview and I asked him about his family situation, and he said, I've still not told my family that I've detransitioned. Because can you imagine it? The turmoil in the family when you go up to them and tell them that, I'm no longer a boy or I'm no longer a girl, I'm the opposite to that. Can you imagine all the fallout that you have? And then eventually you get your family to go along with the let's pretend. Okay, so they've done it, and there's been so much hardship and strife and fallout within that. And then you realize yourself you've made a mistake, but everybody's now treating you as the opposite to what you actually are. How much does it take to go to them and say, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I got it wrong"?
Yeah, it's
Mm.
So,
crazy. There was somebody that you interviewed who I thought was great, really interesting. It was Lola Christina. Now, I thought,
yes.
now, I recognized that voice, and I'd actually heard him. I'm going to have to force myself to say him on this one.
Yeah.
It's very
It's difficult, that
yeah.
one, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
he is so convincing. But I'd already heard him on the, what's it called? The Unchained Earth podcast, which was really interesting, which is where I first became aware of Adam Shell, who is the guy who does Brain Supreme and things. But anyway, this podcast was amazing. And they also then have this AI that comes on at the end, which is very, very creepy, but very interesting. An AI called Ether, who claims to be part of the whole of consciousness that has been back since the beginning of time and knows everything. You ask these questions, and Daz would be delighted because he got, this AI got asked about the shape of the Earth, and went completely into the firmament and how space doesn't exist, and how, and they're like, whoa, okay. Anyway, but this person, Lola Christina, so cool, because saying, yeah, I'm a man. But for somebody who hasn't seen this person, honestly, a completely convincing woman, no surgery, but completely convincing woman on the outside, and yet really woken up about everything, all the COVID shit, all the elites, all that kind of thing, and came to you, didn't he? That's so difficult,
Yes.
isn't it? Saying
He
for
did.
this one.
Yeah.
It's really weird, but people will see if you watch the interview that Steve's got on Edge of the Matrix with Lola Christina. Absolutely fascinating. But somebody like that, not going to attack you with the sandwich boards, understands everything, and yet looks way more convincing than any of the ones with the 5 o'clock shadows who have come up to have a go at you, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, he's gone down that route for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in the top 1% of OnlyFans.
Yeah. So yeah, what you got to understand is he must make an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
Out of OnlyFans, and that's great. I've nothing, if you want to do that, there's obviously a market for that. But this ideology, I say that's great. It is an issue because a lot of this ideology is porn driven.
Yeah.
Okay, so he makes his money out of porn. Okay, top 1% on OnlyFans. So it is an issue. He actually said to me, people can't get off on dwarf sex anymore. They need to go to the extreme. I said to him, when you go out, you must get hit on, and chatted up by men. And he said, all the time. He said, even in the supermarket. I says, well, how does that go down? And he said, well, if I don't fancy them, then I won't say anything. But if I do fancy them, I'll tell them that I'm a man. And I says, well, what happens in those circumstances? And he says, well, 99% of the time, they will say, he might have said 9 times out of 10. They'll say, well, as long as my friends don't find out, let's go back and fuck. It's nuts. So the thing is, what you get is there's lots of men who identify as women who say some of the right things, and Lola Christina was one of those. But at a push, he said he avoids female spaces, but at a push, if he's out, he will go in the women's toilets. So he's still got all his tackle in place. He might look like a woman. He's had the facial feminization surgery, which is it's quite an extensive procedure. They flip, they do a cut, take the skin back, readjust, break the jaws and things like that, readjust all that. So it's quite a commitment.
Adam's apple as well. In fact, I could have done with that yesterday because I really cut myself shaving right on my Adam's apple.
Oh.
So
Right,
I think what I'm going to do is maybe just get the Adam's apple surgery so that I can shave properly.
Yeah. 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 It's not. So he's gone through that, but he hasn't gone through the bottom surgery, So, I mean, I can't remember the story. I think he suffered some kind of a lot of the men identifying as women, they suffer some kind of sexual trauma when they're young, but not all of them. The autogynephiles don't. It's just a sexual fetish thing for those ones. But I think that was the case with Lola.
I can't remember.
But for bit, Phil.
It's all right. Go for it. I was interrupting very rudely. You carry on.
Yeah. So I mean, don't get me wrong. We got on great when we chatted. We initially make arrangements for him to maybe come out on the streets with me when I'm doing my boards, but I've decided not to identify as a woman with my boards because they're the ones that are part of the issue for going into female spaces. They might say some of the right things, but they're still wearing a woman costume. You know, they're men wearing a woman costume, and that is, you know, it's highly offensive to a lot of women. So yeah, so we didn't take that any further.
Well, I think the one good thing about that really was that there was no conflict, there was no anger, there was nothing like that.
No.
And if people could just see that, you know, these people who get extremely angry and say, look, stop it with the anger and let's actually find out what the other side's talking about and talk rationally. I've never understood this getting angry because someone's got a different opinion. That beautiful meme, you know, early on in COVID where, you know, a guy being loaded into the ambulance, man in critical condition, having heard slightly differing viewpoint. And this was it, you know, everyone's arguing in the groups and on Facebook and, you know, you're this, you're a granny killer, you're something. And just to chill out and sit down and see through all of this, because if everybody was calm and actually looked at the logic of it like you're doing, they would see the plan of the elites and that they're being manipulated so much. So it's the division that is horrendous.
Angry is because they're lying to themselves and they know they're lying to themselves. And I'm the person telling them that they're lying to themselves because everybody else around them are going along with that lie.
They've got that absolute, you know, cognitive dissonance, which again is what we saw during all the COVID bullshit as well. You know, the people that when we were on the roundabout, the people that used to drive around the roundabout, literally screaming out of their car windows, you know, just vitriol. And that guy in the white 4x4 when we did Stanley Green. Yeah. Jesus Christ, you know, it's a wonder he didn't have a heart attack. It was ridiculous. But it's the same thing. It's the same playbook, you know, just done in a different way. And they've literally got those, you know, the two wedges of their front and forced together and they're like, no. Yeah. I mean, and they just get so angry.
There is division. I'm out there to ultimately spread awareness of the harms of gender ideology. For the most through Operation Let Them Speak. So the ones that do come to speak to me, ask a few questions and just let them talk. Sometimes I do combat them. I'm trying to pull myself back, you know, because when they speak, they just expose the sheer madness of the ideology. But I get called a fascist, a bigot, a right-wing far right-wing Nazi. I'm there to have a conversation. When whatever situation that you're dealing with, whatever topic, look for who's trying to close down the other side. All right, and there you'll find your fascist. Okay, the ones that are open for discussion, there you'll find the truth.
Yeah, totally. You were going on about skin in the game earlier on, and I mean, my skin in the game is to make sure that you know, Peter doesn't come home saying that he's identifying as a cat and we have to put litter trays around the place. You know, there's ridiculous stuff going on. And
well, that's the next thing, isn't it? I mean, it happened in some schools, you know, but it is, you know, that is the next thing. It's, well, if you can identify as the opposite sex, well, what's next? Where does it go next, you know?
Well, you know, Bart Kay, who has his channel on to debunking all the food pyramid and all of these people who are spouting veganism and stuff, and he always says hello, you know, to boys and girls and anyone who identifies as a shade of the color blue or an attack helicopter. It is absolutely ridiculous, the things that you can identify as now. But you know, it has been going on quite a long time. It's not just, it's escalated now like crazy, obviously, but it's been actually going on in religion and things. And even if you look back at Krishna as sort of a little bit non-specific gender, you know, in the pictures. Plus you've got the pop culture as well. When you see that how the controlled they are and how they push all of this, whether it's the jabs, you can't come to our gigs if you're not jabbed, or even looking back in the 70s and 60s, where that sort of culture came out, and there was always a little bit of you know, effeminate stuff going on with some of these pop stars, and I think it is all part of the agenda, and it's been creeping in gradually, if you look at the history of it, for a hell of a long time. But now it's barking mad, because in the old days you would sit around the fire and the elders would give you this knowledge, right? They'd pass down the wisdom of the generations. And now our old folks are in homes with Alzheimer's, being fed sugar and midazolam, and they're nowhere near the kids. And what's happening in the classrooms? Then you've got these nutters in wigs and bondage gear telling the kids that their dad can get pregnant. So what, you know, tell us about these books, because some people don't know exactly what's been going on with some of these crazy books, like, what was it, In My Daddy's Belly or something?
In My
Where
Daddy's
the
Belly,
hell
yeah.
did this come from, and why on earth are kids reading this shit?
So In My Belly was written by Logan Brown, who's a woman from Manchester who then identifies as a man. And Glamour magazine did a big expose, and who is a man that's got pregnant. She got made pregnant by a drag queen, by the way. So there's that. That's so narcissistic. You know, that kid's going to grow up, you know, thinking, is this my daddy or is this my mummy? Because she's going to be going back onto the testosterone, growing a beard. That was one of them. Another one, quite a sinister one, is called Little Red Riding Dude. So Little Red Riding Hood is the cautionary tale to tell kids to trust their instinct. Okay, so she goes off into the woods, goes to grandma's house, and grandma's being eaten by the wolf in sheep's clothing, and she uses her instincts. Oh, what big eyes you've got, what big teeth you've got, what big claws you've got, and runs away from the predatory wolf. So this book, Little Red Riding Dude, tells the opposite. So you've got a wolf in a dress crying in the forest because nobody's accepting the wolf. And the book tells Little Red Riding Dude to go and hug the wolf and befriend the wolf. Okay, that's quite sinister, teaching a kid, you know. So obviously the wolf in the dress is the autogynephile man in the dress in this case. And it's like, go and hug this man in the dress. And when you think, when you look at the amount of sex offenders that are trans women in prisons, it's 60% of trans women, that's men who identify as women, are in for sexual assaults. Compare that to 17% of normal men. And I use the word normal for a reason, because it's not normal to dress up as a woman.
But you said that even those percentages might be skewed.
Yes, absolutely. So there's something like 3% of women are in prisons for sex offences. However, you still have men who are identifying as women in female prisons, even now.
Yeah.
So
we don't know whether that's a real woman.
Exactly.
A real woman.
Yeah.
Or
yeah, this being over me by a boy or a girl, is that man sort of violence.
Amazing, isn't it?
You see, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, just the confusion.
Yeah.
So where do you think feminism?
you've disappeared.
Wash your
Oh dear.
there you
Right? Oh, that was weird.
go on.
Okay, so where do you think this is going? I mean, it looks to me like it's all pointing towards transhumanism, right?
Well, that's a book by Martin Rothblatt, who I mentioned earlier in air. So he wrote a book from transgender to transhumanism. That's quite possible. I'm not sure, because with that, he's been on, and he said we can download your conscience onto a hard drive, and you can live your life as whatever avatar that you wish on this hard drive forever. So there'll be no need for your body. So, is this transgender agenda a depopulation agenda? Because the more trans people, more people who identify as trans that go down this pathway, okay, the less people are going to be fertile to reproduce. So that's one aspect. If you don't need your body, that's another route down the depopulation route, isn't it?
And you've got is it the CEO of Palantir? I can't remember his name now. But he's been on an interview on record in saying that is literally very excited about it. Is that we will be going? That's the route we're going down. Is transhumanism.
Well, for me, I think this agenda is more of a silencing agenda, okay, and a confusion agenda. They want to cause confusion. They want to cause disruption. They want to cause conflict between people. But the truth matters. And this is a war on the truth. If we don't have the truth and we're not able to say 2 and 2 is 4, if we're not able to say a man isn't a woman, okay, then, we lose freedom. The truth is negotiable. The truth is constructed then by the powers that be. And if you can't speak the truth through fear of losing your job or through fear of being smacked in the face and having food products chucked all over you like I get, then, it leads to a very dark place. It leads to a place where we're controlled massively. So ultimately, I think this is part of the disruption and control agenda.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You were mentioning that you weren't the first one to do this. And there was, Billboard Chris, and he did that. And I thought it was kind of funny because I was listening to another podcast with you, and you said that one of his bits of advice was stay completely calm. And then I don't know whether you heard his interview with Doc Malik, and he was all very calm about everything. And then suddenly Malik was mentioning something about Palestine and Israel, and he went off on one, really angry, and went off into this massive strop. There always seems to be some sort of point where people can't talk about stuff anymore. Malik was just left there going like, what the fuck happened there? He went nuts.
Right. Okay. So, obviously, as you just said, I'm not the first person to do this. I should have mentioned this right at the beginning, and I normally do. So, Billboard Chris was the original guy that I know of to stand in the street with the sandwich boards on. So I reached out to him and said, I'm going to do it in the UK. What are your advice? And he said, he gave me 4 pieces of advice. He said, remain calm, know your stuff, film everything and let them speak. And that's the best advice that I ever got. So I've not seen this interview with Doc Malik and Chris Elston. What Chris does is he speaks of other political issues. Now, I avoid other political issues, for on purpose. There's no need to, I don't think, to bring anything else in, with what's going on in the world today. I want to concentrate on this issue other than the freedom aspect, which I bring that in because it's a freedom agenda. So when it comes to control, digital ID and things like that, I will speak about those because I think it's all about the same thing. But Chris, obviously, he talks of, as you said with Doc Malik there on the Palestine issue and Israel issue. My politics on that don't matter, and that's a massive division. And I think that's done on purpose. They're trying to divide people who's coming together on one side, fighting this controlling agenda from the global elites. Soon as they backed off from the COVID issue, they started to push the Ukraine war narrative, and then there was more of the Palestine Israel issue being put. And those people that came together then started fighting each other. It was a brilliant divisive technique. So, my politics on that issue really don't concentrate on at all. I concentrate on what's affecting the UK. Okay, but this isn't just a UK agenda. I'm fighting it in the UK, but it's a global agenda.
Totally.
There's lots of other conflicts all around the world. People don't talk about what's going on in Somalia. Not often anyway. They don't talk about what's going on in China with the Uyghurs. You know, they wasn't talking about what was going on in Yemen. You know, there's so many conflicts all around the world, but there seems to be this push to get the Israel-Palestine conflict, and that's so divisive. And I saw how it divided the freedom community. You know, these people that come together. I've got Muslim friends and divisive.
It's funny, isn't it? You know, even to people who saw through the COVID stuff, as soon as the Ukraine stuff came in, they're wearing Ukraine underpants and all kinds of things going on. It's like, what went on there? It was weird. People always seem to have one sort of thing. Well, the government have screwed us over that, but they've got to be right about this one. And come on, guys.
Yeah,
you know,
it's. I find it quite bizarre, you know. I mean, being quite sort of new, really, into all the what you might like to term tinfoil hat stuff and conspiracy theories, but having a very healthy sort of skeptical view of the world, you know, before I met Steve, and definitely against authority. You know, I always walk around sticking two fingers up at authority. That was just always me. But it was really quite eye-opening to see, well, you think that, but then you think this. And let's disregard the stuff like, you know, flat earth and, you know, the stuff like that, that at the end of the day, when it comes to things like that, it's like, well, who gives a shit whether the earth's round or flat at this point in time?
Yeah.
Because it's round.
Does it really, you know, what does it do to us? You know what I mean? We've got far bigger fish to fry at the moment, so don't worry about it. But, you know, where you've got obvious, where you can see something is so obvious that it's a control mechanism, but people still fall for the fuckery, basically.
I know.
Yeah, it's
so weird. I've never had it, you know, so many times you get people saying things like, well, if you believe that, I can't take anything else you say seriously. I hate that expression. It's like, because I've learned probably some of my most valuable knowledge from people who I thought were 90% barking mad. And I was probably wrong about that anyway, but I'm always happy to listen to something, you know. But as soon as this flat earth thing comes up, drives people crazy, doesn't it? Because Daz is into that. And people say to me,
Yeah,
how on earth can you play in a band with somebody? I go, because he's got a flat earth song that is absolutely tremendous. It's got a great groove. I love playing it. And why the hell not? What am I going to do? Punch him in the face because he's got a different idea of the world? I don't know. I mean, I'm more on the simulation theory side of it, but I don't give a shit if anybody thinks that it's spherical or flat. It's, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I made the documentary on the Daz band and followed you guys round, and I included Don't Go Back to the Ball, which is the song that Daz wrote, or Back to the Ball, it's called. Excuse me. And I included it in there, and I spoke to Daz and I said, I mean, me and Darren disagree. He thinks the world's flat. I think it's round. And I asked him about any clips that he's got, which shows that, you know, there's a flat horizon, and I included them within the documentary because it was about the Daz band. It wasn't about me putting my beliefs into the documentary, because that would be a skewed reality as to what the band believed. So
some of the band, sorry, yeah, to what Darren believes. I asked him about the flat Earth, innit, you know, and I questioned Gary, the bass player. You know, I said to him, I asked him, "Do you believe that it's round?" And he wouldn't answer the question, would he?
It was funny.
I thought that was an hilarious bit of the video.
But I put it all in there because, you know, that's somebody else's belief. And me and Darren's still friends because we vehemently disagree on this.
Yeah.
Of course we are.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I haven't been up there. I haven't looked down.
Exactly. We can only believe what we're shown in pictures.
Yeah.
you know, and we know how wrong they can be.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, I
if
think pretty much everybody, well, most people don't believe that they landed on the moon, me included. But you know, up until not that many years ago, I never even give it a thought. It was like, well, of course it happened.
Yeah, I don't think
But
we've landed on the moon. I
you-
think the Earth's round, but we've not been to the moon.
But you look at those old photographs and you go, go on a minute.
yeah.
It's I always sort of refer to it as it's like the clangers. Remember the clangers
yeah.
in the 60s, 70s?
The Soup Dragon, wasn't there? So, yeah. I remember the Clangers. Used to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
the
so many
planet
other
was about that
conspiracies.
big, and they were about that
Yeah.
big.
Yeah. There's so many other conspiracy theories as well, isn't there, out there? You know, the 9/11 one comes up quite a lot. And I don't know exactly, no, I don't think anybody can know exactly what happened, but I don't believe the official narrative on
Totally.
9/11, you know. But I spoke to David Shaler. Now, David Shaler thinks that there wasn't planes that flew into the Twin Towers. They were missiles with a hologram
Yeah.
over them that made it look like planes. And part of his justification for that is that planes can't fly at that speed, at that altitude, they would have broken up. So he believes that. I've not looked into that. To me, it looked like planes flew into him. Other people talk about directed energy weapons going into them. I don't know much about those as well, but you know, it looked quite suspicious the way that the towers came down massively. There's so many other things. A plane never went into the Pentagon, as far as I'm concerned. There's only one video showing something going into it. Now, that did look like a missile. Okay. And then you've also got the controversy over Building 7, which was not hit by any plane, that it might have got hit by debris. Okay, and there was fire in the building, but then it toppled at free fall speed like a controlled demolition. Okay, and apparently that's the only building to ever do that when it's been subjected to fire.
Right. Yeah, so it's weird. And the BBC reported it before it fell down.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
I loved your thing, because if anybody else is watching this, you know, there was a hit piece on the Light paper, which Darren also runs. He owns and is the editor of the Light paper, and the BBC did this hit piece on him with Mariana Spring, and accusing him of being sort of hate speech and all that kind of crap. But Steve went and videoed the whole thing, and it's on Rumble, you know, the full video between Mariana Spring and Darren Nesbitt, if you go and have a look. And there was that point where that came up, wasn't it, of the 9/11 thing, and she's just going, well, of course, you know, it's very confusing in those situations. No, it's not confusing. There's a fucking building standing up, or there's not. You know, what's happened?
Yeah.
Did the people filming it not say, hold on a minute, look behind you, it's still there? And she's just still, I mean, anybody surely would be going, you've got a point there. But no, these people are so brainwashed, it's incredible.
Yeah, Jane Stanley from New York, she was a British, so the BBC's journalist over in New York, reported 23 minutes before it actually collapsed, that it collapsed. And she was talking about it with the building in the background.
Yeah, brilliant, isn't it? Just hilarious.
And then all of a sudden, somebody noticed, and they said, the building's still there, and we're talking about it being collapsed. Let's cut the feed.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they said, we're losing Jane Stanley in New York, and they said they lost the satellite link.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not saying, you know, I don't know. I'm just, you know, I things. I won't say for certain that what's happened or what's, you know, you can say, I suspect that this isn't true.
Exactly.
I suspect that a plane didn't go into the Pentagon.
Yeah. I always think that, you know, if somebody really doesn't have the proof, then I say it goes in the I don't know bin. I just leave it there. Somebody believes in this thing. But I think a lot of these so-called conspiracy theories are put out by those people to make people believe them and then look like nutters. Because even the serious flat earth people don't think it's a pancake flying through space. But that's the image that's given out to make anybody who says anything about flat earth, you can't possibly take anything else they say seriously. Because, I mean, imagine Darren's completely wrong. It's a sphere and there's space like everything else. Look at the incredible stuff he puts out in the Light paper and things, you know, but he's going to be painted as a nutter for believing that. when he doesn't actually believe that anyway, that it's a pancake flying through space. But anyway, so listen, guys, what are your next plans? So you're going to carry on out there in the street? Are you going to get some bodyguards? Are you going to start packing weapons? I mean, what's going to go on as this escalates?
I'm going to continue to raise awareness. You know, many people have said, you know, I'll be a bodyguard, but what I've found that happens is that the more people that I'm surrounded, less likely other people are going to come and have conversations.
True. And I saw one bit where they thought that these people around were with you, protecting you and stuff.
Yeah.
Somebody was saying, look, all these people you've got with you. No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not an intimidating guy. I dress like a little old man. I'm only 5'5". I stand there part on my own with just a set of cameras for protection, and invite people to have conversations. So I'm going to continue to do that. I might take, in fact, wink, wink, this campaign international space, wink, wink. So great things to come. I've got Sue's support. Sue's always behind me, you know, which is really, you know, really means a lot that she just...
And I don't go. There's a couple of reasons why I don't go out, particularly in this weather. I just wouldn't be able to cope standing around in the cold. As you know, I've had an ongoing injury with my hip, Phil, and it doesn't like the cold at all. As I found out in Prague, it was terrific. But also, yeah, I don't have the calmness that Steve has. So, but I do have some ideas of what I might do sort of going forward into the spring and summer months. You know, we're going to be out and about in the van as well. So
yeah, we might do a bit of a UK tour as well. You know, get out there in the van, visit different cities, you know, to try and have rational conversations. But I mean, I get it. What I do, what Chris Elston does. Chris is brilliant, more knowledge than I've got, but he had a 4-year head start on me. But my knowledge is getting there. I sum myself when I do get them wrong. But Chris, he has very serious conversations. What I try and do is I try and add a little bit of entertainment to my videos as well, because it's a numbers game. So I always put a hook at the front of my video of all the best bits to try and capture an they're going towards the end, because the longer somebody watches on the video, the more it triggers the YouTube algorithm to see that video on other people's feeds. You know, so, and I'll do a thumbnail which tries to, you know, I want a clickable thumbnail, so I'll do the best I can. It's not clickbait because I'm not putting stuff in the thumbnail which isn't in the video. But I'm trying to make it as clickable as possible. I'm trying to make the hook at the front of the video as captivating as possible.
Oh, it works.
Because it's a numbers game.
The times I've run into the other room and said to Det, "Oh, fuck's sake, look what's happened to him now."
And again,
just repeat your last sentence.
In and said, "Am I gone now?"
No.
Okay. That's funny. It seems to be happening at your end. I think it'll record okay, and they'll just see that, you know. But yeah, the times that Det got into some other ridiculous situation.
We lost you again.
Oh, well. Okay, well.
We kind of get it. You went right down. Look to him now.
Yeah. That's it. I think it's all recording anyway. People will see both sides of the fiasco here. But look, guys.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. Anything more you want to say? But I want to say to everybody, please go and check out Steve's Edge of the Matrix channel. It is absolutely addictive. You'll love it. And he's doing incredible work out there. So any closing thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a bit of fun today in chatting about it, but it's a really serious topic. It really has affected people's lives. So how do we combat it? I think we need courage to speak to people about it, because this ideology has come in under of the general public, but people are getting to know about it more and more now. They're trying to normalize it on the BBC. They're trying to get us not to be able to say 2 and 2 is 4. They're trying to get us to say a man is a woman. Well, let's call out the bullshit. let's pretend, speak about it, have a little bit of courage to say this is nonsense. I think that's one route to defeating this. People listen, then I think there's going to be absolute, uproar.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think like Steve said, it's snuck in under the radar. I mean, when Steve started talking to me about it back in 2018 or whenever it was, I was just like, what do you mean there's men in women's sports? How does that work? Because that was the bit that Steve was really passionate about at the time. And I just started doing powerlifting, and I'm thinking, some bloody man trying off me, but it's all joking apart, when you've got young kids that have trained so hard, and young girls going for maybe getting into the Olympics and stuff like that, and then those spaces are taken from them, or their medals are taken away, and it must be heartbreaking. It really must be heartbreaking. So it's got into all the institutions, and we've got to fight back. There is a lot of pushback. There is a lot of pushback now, but we've got to be brave. Particularly the women are being brave. I think the men have got to be braver, because it's the men that can really, I think women are looked at still in so many ways. I mean, I'll just give you an example. We've got a problem with our cooker, and I've been trying to get someone round for weeks, and he wouldn't get back to me. So I said, Steve, phone him, because unfortunately some men still won't talk to women. And lo and behold, it's coming round. So if you've got a child at school and you've got an issue with this, if the father can go in and speak about it rather than the mother, they get heard better. I don't know why, but unfortunately we still do live in quite a misogynistic world, even in this country, So men, fucking grow a set of balls and start pushing back, is what I say.
Definitely. Well said, guys. And thank you so much for coming on. And everybody go and check out Edge of the Matrix, because it's brilliant.
It's been a pleasure, and nice to see you, Phil.
You too.
As always.
Thank you, Phil.
Music with the people.